Mr. Speaker, I rise to make my contribution in this ongoing debate. But please permit me, sir, before I get into the substance of my debate, to make representation on two matters. Firstly, sir, I have been contacted by workers at the Georgetown City Council, and I'm asking the Honorable Minister of Communities, today is the 5th of November, and workers at the Georgetown City Council have not yet been paid, except the grade 1 and 2 workers that are represented by the Guyana Workers Union. So I'm asking the Honorable Minister of Communities to look into that. Secondly, sir, it was over a month that this House was assured when we examined financial paper number 3, and the specific question was asked to the Minister about severance for the Wales sugar workers, if in that sum that was appropriated, if it included the sums for the Wales sugar workers. The answer was yes. Weeks have passed, and they had to come here today, and they have asked that their voices be heard in this chamber, sir, and I do so make representation on their behalf that the Wales sugar workers be paid their severance and the appropriate interest that is entitled for the long delay. So, sir, I make that call as I begin today for the Georgetown City Council workers as well as the Wales sugar workers. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Finance, when he presented his budget, indicated that his budget is being presented in a particular environment. Yes. Number one, he says it's the penultimate budget before the 2020 elections. He said it is the budget that comes the year before force oil, and he also said it is the budget that comes the year before our Jubilee celebrations of our Republic. Mr. Speaker, in rebutting the minister's budget, he said the environment in which he premised his budget. We are debating this budget also in a particular environment. And the environment in which we are debating this budget, sir, is where there is increased fear of ethnic discrimination in this country. We are debating this budget in that context, sir. We are debating this budget in an environment where there is real or perceived, whichever one you may wish to use, political persecution of political opponents by the government. We are debating this budget, sir, in an environment where people, more than 63% of this country, has just rejected this government and their policies by saying, change your program and your policies, we are unhappy with it. So when we discuss this budget, sir, we have to discuss this budget in that context. And may I also say, sir, this budget is being discussed in a context where the leader of the opposition has laid a no-confidence motion in this parliament to be debated. And this no-confidence motion, sir, came at a time when the people of Guyana has expressed their concerns about the level of incompetence, maladministration, mismanagement, and corruption. I was reminded not so long ago, sir, about the ad that the people of Guyana listened to, and it was played for me. And I want to ask members of the government if they remember these words. Vote APNU AFC. Stop corruption for transparency and accountability and good governance. Vote APNU AFC. What has happened to that? All of a sudden, these words are no longer used in this House by the honorable members of government. They cannot discuss corruption. They cannot discuss accountability and transparency. They cannot discuss accountability anymore. So, Mr. Speaker, I just thought I would remind us of the context. Mr. Speaker, in an environment where the government is touting a policy of social cohesion, and that seems to be on the front burner. Not one rebuke, not one correction, not one statement has come from any senior member of this government as it relates to the improper statements that were made by at least 2 senior ministers that interfere with the very fabric of this society when it comes to ethnic unity and social cohesion. Mr. Speaker, the minister said in his budget speech at 1.10, how he consulted with very many organizations, private sector bodies, governmental organizations, civic groups, and ordinary citizens. Well, Mr. Speaker, if you consult with more of the same people, you will just hear the same thing. The party that represents the largest group of people in this country, which is the People's Progressive Party, Civic, was not consulted. And even when we offered our suggestion by way of public discourse, it was not included in the budget. It was not included in the budget.
9.8% of the votes.
So this budget, sir, does not reflect the views of the majority of the people of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, if I'm to describe this budget, I will simply say it was routine. We are here for a routine. This is all about routine. It is unrealistic and very questionable, and I will show you just now why. It is filled with wastage and extravagance.
That's right.
It's a lost cause. This budget is unimpressive. It evoked no admiration. It is monotonous, it's mundane, and it's fatiguing. I had to sit and listen for all of those hours to endure much of nothing. Mr. Speaker, let me get to some specifics so we can deal with this in the context. And I know the Minister of Public Infrastructure is coming after me, so I want him to answer some specific questions. In this budget, a call is being made on the consolidated fund for us to provide $100 million to support feasibility studies for the new Demerara Harbour Bridge. Mr. Speaker, we all know in this House, because there's a report from the Public Procurement Commission, that this minister breached our procurement laws, and the entire cabinet breached the Constitution and the procurement laws when they took an unsolicited bid to the cabinet, and the cabinet approved it. But what is worse, Mr. Speaker, is that the payment for that feasibility study came from an extra budgetary account, the asphalt plant of the new Demerara Harbour Bridge. So I have expressed a lot of interest in what is happening there, sir, and my research will indicate something that the minister should answer. In the Public Procurement Commission report, we were told that on November 25, 2016, Cabinet approved $161,514,420 to pay for this study. In December 2016, the general manager of the bridge, who was also named project manager, signed the contract without the approval of the board. And I will show just now, the minister seems to not like have boards in his institution, because one of the agencies that is spending the most money in that sector, GPL, don't have a board, and we're coming to that just now. Now listen to this. Mr. Speaker, I have information that reveals that in 2017, the asphalt plant of the Demerara Harbour Bridge paid $153,250,385 on this feasibility study. I also have information that's proof that in January of 2018, a further 14,728,000 was expended, and in February, another 59,340,000 was expended. When you add all of these figures together, we're talking about $227 million. But we were told that the Dutch company only got 148 million. Where did the rest of the money go? We want to know today, not later on, not we will get the information to you, get it to us today. Because you went into an extra budgetary account, you took money illegally, paid for feasibility that was an unsolicited bill, and for the people of Guyana to understand, an unsolicited bid is an underhand arrangement. An underhand arrangement. How did the company know that you wanted a deal? A backroom discussion resulted in a paper that went to cabinet, and the cabinet approved, and even the accounting of the money from the asphalt plant of the Demerara Harbour Bridge is not accurate. How much did you spend? Please tell the Honorable House this afternoon, because you're asking for another 100 million for the Demerara Harbour Bridge from the budget. Mr. Speaker, I want to move on. I want to move on. What is the reality of this budget? I said a little earlier that this budget is routine, it is monotonous, it is mundane. Listen to the capital expenditure. The minister said that he's ramping up expenditure in public infrastructure, and we are going to have all of these new projects. Well, the reality is, Mr. Speaker, nothing new. Listen to the figures. In 2017, the capital budget of public infrastructure was 29,364,822,000. In 2018, it was 24,438,367. In 2019, where the Minister of Finance says he's ramping up expenditure with his $300 billion budget, they're spending $26,212,032. But let me tell you why that is happening, sir. I go to the Auditor General's report. The Auditor General's report on public infrastructure. Let me read some of the comments. Implementation of Lot A works were slower than anticipated. Lot B works had to be retendered. Delays in approval in selecting 4 hinterland communities for solar projects. This on the Sustainable Energy Program. Everything is slow or not moving. Delay in implementation of works, Lot A, since residual project activities were merged with PUP Lot A works on the electrification program. Page 148 of the Auditor General's report. I want to go again. This is an underperforming ministry. That's the point I'm making. So how could you ramp up expenditure and capital works on capital works and infrastructure when you're not moving? The highway improvement program. Listen to the Auditor General comments. Pace of works were delayed due to availability of the removal of utilities. Road network and expansion program. Delay in award of Sheriff Street program. See defenses. Delay in tendering and award of contracts. Road improvement and rehab program. Miscellaneous roads. Multi-year contract rollover. Everything is slowing up and terrible. But Mr. Speaker, if you want to understand the reality of the APNU AFC government, it is in one paragraph of the Auditor General's report. Paragraph 11, audit examinations reveal 8 instances in Region 6 where the contract sum was the same as the engineer's estimate.
8 instances.
In addition, each item on the contractor's bill of quantities was identical to that of the engineer's bill of quantities. All 8 of these contracts were awarded by the Regional Tender Board, of which 4 were awarded at one sitting. It should be noted that all 8 contracts were awarded to the same contractor. We've been talking about this all the time. But now the evidence is out. It's no longer the PPPC saying it. This is the independent office of the Auditor General of Guyana that we represented that he should get more money to do more research to ensure that the corruption, the lack of transparency, the cronyism and all that is taking place should be exposed. And this is the reality of what is taking place in our country, Mr. Speaker. So we are debating here, sir. But let me talk about the capital budget for the Ministry of the Presidency. Let me talk about the capital budget of the Ministry of the Presidency, and some people will definitely wake up now. In 2017, the capital budget for the Ministry of the Presidency was $1,162,633,000. In 2018, it was $1,679,810,000. In 2019, the capital budget for the Ministry of the Presidency is a whooping $3,336,239,000. But listen to the story here about the priorities. Remember, the minister said his budget is context in an environment where it's the penultimate year before force oil. I would have thought that the Department of Energy would have received a significant allocation to help to prepare Guyana for force oil. Here what the Department of Energy got Guyana, $333,273,000. But listen to what the Ministry of Citizenship got. And all of us in Guyana know what's going on in the Ministry of Citizenship. All of us know. We heard the report yesterday, and all of us know. Yes, all of us know what's going on in the Ministry of Citizenship. The man in the street, the hairdressing saloon, the barbershop, the people at the airport, the taxi driver, the minibus driver, everybody know what's going on in the Ministry of Citizenship. 802 million. What? Could you imagine a country preparing for force
Remember,
oil?
we have to contain
Give
ourselves.
to the
in this
Department
matter.
of Energy 333 million, but to the Ministry of Citizenship, they're looking after the people coming in and passing through, the trafficking, the trading, the birth certificate, the padding, and all the rest of it, that everybody know about the cost, the middlemen who doing the run-ins, everybody know the story. They got 802 million. What is the priority of this government? We are seeing it very clear in budget 2019.
Direction.
But if you think that is bad, let's go to the Ministry of Social Cohesion.
Social division.
I was the first to declare in this house that the Ministry of Social Cohesion is the exact duplicate of the Ministry of National Mobilization. 350 million. And don't get fooled that this is to the preparation of venues, because I researched the budget. They give a paltry 53 million to the national park to fix up the stands of the national park. And that is not in the 350 million. This is not in the 350 million. But listen to this now. Do you know what they have done? They plan to spend more money on Durban Park. But this time they're putting it through the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. They put it on the National Sports Commission. Oh my God. You know why? You know why they couldn't put it in the Ministry of Public Infrastructure? Because of what the Auditor General says. And I will read it for you now. The sum of 500 million was expended on Durban Park rehabilitation. The Audit Office wrote the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Infrastructure, on the 19th of July 2018, requesting documentation detailing the works done, supervisory checks of the said works, as well as certification that works were satisfactorily completed. 6 payments by the Ministry to Homestretch Development, Inc. were submitted. However, only documents indicating HDI creditors and government's proposed payment allocation to the creditors were attached to the payment vouchers.
Nothing.
What the Auditor General asked for from Durban Park, he hasn't gotten it yet. But they plan to spend more money on Durban Park, so it is what you call a switch. You switch from Ministry of Public Infrastructure and you tuck it in on the National Sports Commission. Shame, shame, shame.
500 million gone.
Vote APNU, AFC for accountability and transparency. The people of Guyana are remembering. They don't have short memory, they're remembering. Mr. Speaker, I want to come now to GPL. I want to come now to GPL, the Public Utility Upgrade Program. This is perhaps the project where the largest allocation of capital funds is being invested. The minister must tell this House tonight why since January of 2018 there is no chairman of the board. I have called myself to inquire about board meetings if they're being held and who is chairing those board meetings. I have called myself to inquire that in the absence of the board, who is managing the tender process with all of these huge sums that are being expended, because the act requires a governing board. And in the absence of the board, the power is the minister. It is in the minister's interest, if he wants transparency and accountability, to ensure that there is a board. And if there is no board and he is taking the place of the board, well then we have to ask, where is really the accountability and transparency? Remember when the general manager from Jamaica came, he was not introduced to the nation by way of a press conference. It was a high-priced cocktail reception at the Pegasus Hotel to introduce a general manager. I would have thought by now that this GPL would have gone leaps and bounds. And I'm coming to that. When it comes to community power, Mr. Speaker, we are offering more than $300 million a year to Kokwani for community power. And I'm glad that they're getting it. But Mr. Speaker, why are the people in Kokwani being rationed? Between 6 and 10 o'clock every day, there is no electricity. They used to have 24 hours electricity. All of a sudden there is rationing. As a matter of fact, I have spent nights in Kokwani in the lead up to the local government elections, and there was no power for the entire night. We are spending $2.2 billion a year for community power in Linden, and that is a subject that the APNU AFC don't want to touch at all. But even in Linden, where $2.2 billion is being spent for community power, there is blackout from 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 11 o'clock in the night, and the honorable minister who lives in Linden didn't even talk about that in her budget speech. The people are calling me in Georgetown to find out what's going on. This is one of the most mismanaged sectors. Mr. Speaker, I want to indicate that while we are hearing about all the investment in electricity, in the budget speech, section 4108, the minister laments the dependency on fossil fuel for power generation. The Minister of Finance in this 2019 budget is saying we still depend upon fossil fuel. They forgot that it was the APNU plus AFC that killed Amalia.
Dead.
And if you kill Amalia, what do you expect? Now, in section 4, 109, the minister addresses the power utility upgrade program, and he said, look, this has to do with line losses. The sad reality, and the Minister of Public Infrastructure must tell the nation tonight why this is so. The largest loss reduction program is being undertaken currently by GPL. But when GPL went to the Public Utilities Commission, this is what they reported. Overall losses at the end of 2014, 28.65%. But by the end of 2016, it had increased to 29.2%. At the end of 2017, it's 29.6%. So rather than we reducing, we're going up, and we're spending billions. You know why? One of the recommendations that was made years ago is to publish by geographical location who thief in the current, where the line losses occur. And I remember there was one such publication, and where it revealed a lot. It was quite telling. I dare the Minister of Public Infrastructure follow the recommendations and start publishing for the nation to see where the electricity theft is taking place. But now you're in government. They are the people that you talk to. They are the people you claim you represent. Why don't you get them to get on board? Mr. Speaker, we have this situation where we're hearing wind farm, solar, wind farm and solar. But listen to the joke. Listen to the joke. In all of our energy needs, lighting only accounts for about 10%. And all the solar farm and wind you're talking about is just a light. Real energy for manufacturing and industrialization and so on ain't coming from that. So all we talking about is street light and house light and store light? This country needs a developmental model that will see our energy needs being addressed. And even though the IDB has funded and has presented to the government the energy mix matrix, it is still yet not brought to this house or made public. Why are you hiding it? Why are you hiding it? Mr. Speaker, when we look at budget 2019, budget 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018, it's over $953 billion. Almost 1,000 billion or $1 trillion. With budget 2019, 300.7 billion, we would have seen the APA, APNU, AFC government spending $1.3 trillion. So there are two questions the Guyanese people have asked me. Where they get the money from and where it's going. So where the money, I am prepared to stand by my figures anytime. Mr. Speaker, where the money coming from? Number one, taxation. Taxation. The increase in taxation. Number two, where is the money coming from? A depletion of our foreign reserves. Number three, where is the money coming from? Borrowing. Borrowing. So we have taxed the people more. We have depleted our foreign reserves. And we are borrowing more. Now, but if you're going to spend all that money, at least tell me where it's going. So let's talk about where the money is going. So let me tell the people of Guyana why we can't support such a budget. I have both books here because people like the Honorable Attorney General, Senior Counsel, get my numbers right. I get it from the minister's book. Rental of buildings.
Rental of
In
buildings.
2014, when the PPPC left office, we spent $794,948,000 on rental of buildings. In 2019, people of Guyana, Mr. Speaker, must hear, the APNU-AFC government proposes to spend $1,622,842,000, an increase of $827 million. This is where the people's money is going.
I remember you have 5 minutes left.
Mr. Speaker, on maintenance of buildings, in 2014, they spent $2,081 million. In 2019, the budget is $3.7 billion, an increase of $1.7 billion just to the maintenance of buildings. Mr. Speaker, I could go on and on, but I want to touch on another area where the people's money is going, security. In 2014, when we were in office, we spent $3,122 million. In 2019, listen to what the APNU AFC is spending, $5,739,242,000, an increase of $2.6 billion. $2.6 billion more. And by the way, while they're spending all of that money, Sunday, Saturday, I'm getting calls from security guards in Region 1 who have not yet been paid. Security guards in Region 8 who have not yet been paid, and they're spending $2.6 billion more. This is where the money is going. Mr. Speaker, quickly, the minister went to his budget measures and he outlined all the benefits that he is giving to the budget through the measures. And this is what he says in 6.33, Mr. Speaker. Altogether, the measures will result in a net loss of revenue of $3.5 billion, which clearly redound to the benefit of taxpayers. The minister did not tell the nation that he took an additional $16 billion just in VAT. Just in VAT. One tax area, VAT. $16 billion more in VAT with a 14% reduction. You know, I had to tell the people not so long ago, you take $1.2 billion in revenue from the people in Region 1 and you give them a concrete road for $200 million and you told them you're giving them something. What you have done is that you have taken $1 billion from the people. You haven't given them anything. So, Mr. Minister, with all of your fancy footworks,
I remember
yes, sir.
You have 2 minutes
Thank
remaining.
you. With all your fancy footworks, which is good for a dance hall and not for a budget, you haven't given the people anything. You have taken from them. Mr. Speaker, I want to close by saying to you what the people of Guyana asked me to demand of this National Assembly. They said, take VAT off electricity and water. They said, support the young people who want to pursue higher education as they prepare for an oil economy. They said, provide support for communities affected by the closure of sugar estates, just like we did for Linden. They said, create incentives for foreign direct investment to come so that we could have job creation. They've told me to ask you to reverse all of the punitive tax measures that have slowed down the economy, that is causing this country to move backward. They've asked me to ensure safety and security of our citizens. They've asked me to ensure that the sugar workers who deserve their severance get paid immediately. And here, Mr. Speaker, as I close, they have said to tell the Parliament, ensure any future negotiation on oil must be done in Guyana's interest, and all the money collected must go to the consolidated fund. They want a country where there's transparency and accountability, support, good governance, and that's what we stand for. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.